Hello again, and welcome to my next episode of this video series. Thanks for at least taking the time to stop and try and listen to what's ahead. I yet again am going to try to change the format and see what works, what doesn't work, and take it from there. I'm going to talk about a couple of things at least. Not as much as I did in the last episode, and I definitely won't keep you as long either. So thanks for stopping, clicking on it, and at least seeing what might be up ahead. I don't think I'm going to disappoint. It's not my intention to disappoint, but I'm going to talk about some stuff about me that you probably didn't know. It might be a little interesting. We'll wait and see. Thanks again, and we'll see what this episode brings. Stay tuned. All right, so it's been, I think, about a week, at least a week since my last episode, and I guess on whatever kind of basis I'm going to put these episodes out, I'll give you a little update on what's been going on, and say that not much has changed. Still living life and figuring things out a little bit more. I like to believe that instead of taking things day by day through this time in my life, I'd like to think that I'm taking it week by week. I know many of us out there tend to take things week by week, at least on a financial level, and truth be told, I do that a little bit too. Don't we all? But that's kind of how it's going. That's how it's going personally, and that's how it goes. In the realm of parenthood, things are always going the way they're going. It's getting closer and closer to the end of the year, which means yet again another birthday for my number one and my number two son. My firstborn and my secondborn. That sounded weird at first, but they're going to be a year older. And this year, before you know it, will come to a close. And quite frankly, this year can kiss my ass, more or less. I'm kind of glad that it's gonna be done, but man, I can't wait to see what 2020 brings. I'll say that's for sure. And on a side note, November sucks too. Just in general, I kind of have a disdain for the month of November, especially November 2018. And I know a number of you out there will probably feel the same way. I hope that this November is a lot better than the last one I experienced. Let's just hope so. But anyway, not much has really changed. I did reach out to just anyone who would answer as far as what to do, or any pointers or ideas, suggestions to do with this thing. I asked, what did people want to listen to, or what should I talk about? Was there anything they wanted my opinion on, or my thoughts on, anyone wanted to hear? And I just took it from there. I came up with some ideas. Everyone had great ideas, and thank you. I really appreciate it for all your input. big or small, important, or what you might feel unimportant. Everything is important to me, at least. So thank you to those of you who gave me some feedback. And from that, I would like to think that what's coming up next in this episode and episodes to come reflect upon the advice, the suggestions, the wisdom, the input, and the encouragement that I got from you, the viewers. So yeah, we'll see what the immediate future and the near future and then the distant future brings. So thank you again for at least watching this far, and thank you for giving me something to build on with the content to come. So we're going to move on to a topic of mine that I felt I should talk about. Just something that came up, and why not, I guess, given this time of the year. It's sports related. So be fair warned for those of you who don't really care about sports or anything of that nature. But that's something in that universe. So brace yourself. I didn't think orthopedic shoes would work, but I stand corrected. You're welcome.
Ah, Jesus, I should have got a vasectomy after the second one.
I have a confession to make. I'm a black man that can watch hockey. Yeah. Damn straight. I'm a black man that can watch hockey, and it's been that way for almost 25 years. Actually, no, it's been a little over 25 years. I'm not good at doing the math right now, so let's just say whenever the first Mighty Ducks movie came out, that was when hockey was like, whoa, this can be fun. Have I ever played organized hockey? Fuck no. Guys like me, guys like me, we can't skate. Well, not ice skate. Roller skating? Oh yeah, bet your ass. But I've never played organized hockey. And it's kind of funny when you think about the influence something fictional might have on you. I mean, even as a kid, we at our youngest, physically or mentally, or both, the young are impressionable, and I definitely was when it came to that movie. And then seeing a couple black kids on the team playing hockey, I was like, man, okay, like we out here. Before that was a thing to say. And I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the second movie, and I believe it was the second movie when my man Kenan Thompson got in on the action as Russ Tyler, the knuckle puck shooting. I don't think they ever said what his position was. He definitely wasn't a defenseman. He wasn't tough, so I'm gonna assume he was a winger, like a left or a right wing. I told you I watch hockey. I know my positions. And then the second movie, made things cool. In fact, the actual Mighty Ducks in the mid-'90s, when they were playing in the NHL, or they were known as the Mighty Ducks, they were one of my favorite hockey teams. And it was all thanks to a couple of Disney movies. On a side note, you might notice I said a couple of them. I know that there's 3 of them, but the third one it exists, but does it exist? But anyway, Yeah, from a very young age, thought how interesting it was, the game was to watch. And being from where I'm from, it's hockey is ingrained in the area, just the same as our football team is. So you couldn't go anywhere in this city without, talking about hockey or seeing something that has to do with hockey. Especially in 1999, when the Sabres ended up in the Cup final, and probably should have won that. Probably should have won the Cup if it wasn't for Game 6 and rules, certain crease rules and all that bullshit. But yeah, I've always been at least a casual fan. I can sit, I can watch a game, I can enjoy it, and I mean, obviously as long as it's a good game. But yeah, I can sit and watch a game, enjoy it. I've been to a number of games in person, and they were good times with good people, good friends, etc. But yeah, I've never played it. But it's not that normal for someone of my persuasion to, I'm not a diehard hockey fan, but to, I guess, even show a moderate amount of interest in it, or give a moderate amount of attention to it, that's kind of unheard of. And I probably should have did the research, or I probably should have done the research before I started this segment. But I don't believe, and if there has been one, it's been a long time since. But I don't believe there has been, I guess at least in the modern era, an African American NHL player. There are players of color, absolutely. But I believe for the most part they are, I don't know, let's say, I guess Afro-Canadian, if you will. They are black. They, definitely got the melanin thing going on. They're black. However, they are Canadian. They were born in Canada, raised in parts of Canada, and they may very well play for, a U.S. team and maybe reside in the United States. And they may very well, play in the U.S. And play for a U.S.-based team. But through and through, legally speaking, their citizenship is of Canada. So there is representation on a particular level. Right now, in my opinion, I think the most popular black player is PK Subban, who, if you didn't know him before this year, you definitely know him now. I suppose if you've heard in celebrity news or sports news or whatever, I'm not sure if it was really sports news, maybe more so celebrity news, where he earlier this year got engaged to Lindsey Vonn, professional skier Lindsey Vonn. However, he's been playing in the NHL for a number of years. He first made his name in Montreal playing for the Canadiens there, and folks from here, from Buffalo, they definitely knew him when he played there, because the Sabres and Canadiens have a bit of a rivalry, to say the least. And then he ventured down to Nashville from there, almost got a Stanley Cup down there, I think it was, and now he's playing in New Jersey for the Devils, and doing pretty well for himself. He's a good player, really good player. There's another gentleman by the name of Wayne Simmons, who I think still plays for the Philadelphia Flyers. I can't think of. Anson Carter is another player. He's retired now, but I believe he's a TV analyst now. I remember him playing. I know he played at least for the Boston Bruins, I remember, but he's played for, I want to say, one or two other teams. And there might be one or two other names that have played in recent years that their names escape me. But I have to say, when I was younger, I was, I think, in 6th grade. So I was like 11 years old, and I was already a fan of hockey. And the first player that was playing at that time that I guess you could say I respected, I was maybe a little bit of a fan of, I enjoyed watching him play, was Jerome McGinley. And he, I believe, was biracial. Perhaps it was, Afro-Canadian, or, the mix of African and I think maybe Native American. If he wasn't the biracial of, black and white. But he was a popular player. He quickly became an all-star in the mid-90s through the late 90s. Played a number of years. Can't remember if he won a cup or not. But he was always a popular player, always a good player. Always a good player, always a decent player. Every night, every game he went out there and gave his all. He was that kind of a player. But before that, and I'm digging into hockey history, there was a goalie who, and again, I probably should have done my research, I do apologize, by the name of Grant Fuhr. Fuhr. I didn't say Führer, okay, not like Nazis, I said Fuhr, if I even pronounced that correctly. But he was a goalie, and he had a stint with the Buffalo Sabres, I think it was, in his career. However, he had played in Edmonton for the Edmonton Oilers at the same time Wayne Gretzky was up there, and they were winning Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup. So he was a good goalie, really good hockey player. But that was probably the first one I can think of far back, and he, like Iginla, I believe, was biracial, but it was enough. It was enough of the mixing of the skin tones, if you will, where if you looked at him, like you knew he wasn't exactly Caucasian. I mean, not that it was an issue. I mean, who am I kidding? People are people. At some point, the color of his skin and features or whatever were probably an issue, and he caught hell for that. But anyway, there was Grant Fuhr, Jerome McGinley at one point, and while McGinley was playing and making a name for himself, it kind of paved the way for these other players of color to play. And it was kind of cool to see. And again, my interest in playing hockey never got to, trying to play, pee-wee hockey or even hockey for my high school or whatever. I mean, because by the time I was a teenager, I would have had to have been playing before. Kind of like, other players who play maybe like, Pop Warner football or Little League baseball. I would have had to have gotten started early, really gotten into it, and by the time I was a teenager, I would have been a good player in theory. But if you know anybody who either grew up playing hockey or they are parents and they've got kids playing hockey, it's very expensive. And it's very time consuming. You got to travel, you got to be up early. I mean, you don't, it's almost like having a part-time or maybe 2 full-time jobs, just so your kid or kids can play hockey. Excuse me. As far as the time you spend, that is. So, again, I never had the interest enough to play, and I'm pretty sure my mother would have tried to steer me in a different direction just because of the finances, because of the cost. But as a spectator, it was good to see these men of color out there, trying to make a name for themselves in real life. Because had it not been them playing, or had there been, not that kind of a presence, me seeing, people of color play hockey would have only gone as far as the Mighty Ducks movies. And seeing, and this is me being a nerd, seeing Jesse Hall, who was a player on the team, that's a character, and Russ Tyler playing playing hockey, and I cannot remember in the first movie because Jesse had a brother that played on the team with him that all of a sudden disappeared in the second movie. And here's a fun fact: the kid who played his brother in the first movie was Jussie Smollett from Empire. Yeah, that was one of his many acting roles as a youth. But yeah, he played Jesse Hall's brother, and I can't remember what the hell that kid's name was, who just up and just disappeared. Didn't come back and play in the second one or the third one. But anyway, it was good to see those guys doing that kind of thing, and in real life. It's kind of funny because I don't think they've. It's kind of funny to say because I'm not sure how much they've inspired people in real life, inspired black kids to play hockey. It's ice skating in a sport ain't really our thing, which is kind of funny because if we there was a real Jamaican bobsled team, and there was a real one a couple of Olympics ago, 1 or 2 Olympic games ago, and that's as close as we're gonna get. Unless we were born in Canada, because I think the urban myth or the urban legend is if you're born in Canada, you have to do a winter sport. It's in your blood. At some point, you have to, or it's like you're born in Canada and you automatically know how to ice skate. And you ice skate, you get a hockey stick, and everything else falls into place. But anyway, that's something about me you probably did not know. Is I'm a man of color, and I can sit through a whole hockey game. Yeah, damn straight. Now, other sports like golf, I don't think so. I mean, like Tiger Woods has been playing for years now. We all know who Tiger Woods is, but I'm not interested in golf like that. I've never played. I've never been to a driving range, although that might be fun, I guess, if a little bit of alcohol is involved. And if you're trying to have a good time and you're at a driving range, just hitting golf balls. But past that, I don't really have interest in golf. I'm just trying to think of sports that you don't normally find. You don't normally find people like me highly interested in participating in. There's curling. Let me see what else. There's. I think of what else. No, tennis. We got tennis. We totally got tennis. Got it. I'm trying to think of what else. God, come to me, man, because I like to keep talking about it. I mean, what other sports come to mind that we black folk don't play that much because there's maybe not interest in it. I don't know. Now I think about it. What was his name? Was it Donnie Jones? He's a speed skater, and I think it was for the 2014, either the 2010 or the 2014 Winter Games. He was a black man member of the U.S. Olympic speed skating team. And I want to say he medaled. I can't remember what medal or medals he got, but I want to say homeboy medaled and fell into oblivion. We black people don't know too much about him. I do, because I have memory, or my memory likes to retain just random info that isn't really, useful unless perhaps I'm on Jeopardy or a trivia show. I don't know. Maybe one day that'll come in handy. We don't know. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Okay, that was a confession I felt that I had to make, and I made it. So now you know something else about me. All right, let's move on and see what else comes to mind. All right, this next segment, since this episode is dealing with race relations in sports, I guess, more or less, moderately or extremely, I'm going to talk about what I think is still an elephant in the room. And that is Colin Kaepernick. He, I guess for some people has kind of fallen away. I guess falling away is the wrong term, but the talk about him, how viral I guess he went or was at one point in time, has kind of mellowed out over the last several months here and there. I think the last time he really made news was when Nike gave him an endorsement deal. They financially backed him and his causes, more or less. And that kind of died down a little bit. The football season went into training camp over the summer. The NFL went to training camp over the summer. The season has now started, and for many teams, they are halfway through their seasons. Some doing very well, others not so well. Though those ones of the latter not looking so well look like they could use Colin Kaepernick on their team. Still, I say still, because by the time this episode is out there in the world, he would have just recently celebrated his 32nd birthday. He's only 2 years younger than I am, but he's definitely in better shape than me. Still has plenty of football skills and a lot to give to any team that is needy of him. And I think there are at least a handful of teams out there that could use somebody like him and his the physical talents he brings to talents he brings on a football field. I'm sorry. I don't think that he's past his prime. He is, in my opinion, and it looks like he has been ever since he's been away from the NFL, having not played in any games. He's still been training and kind of holding semi-practices, if you will, getting better and better, or staying at whatever level he's been at physically. He's in a gym as often as he can, staying in football shape, if you will. Just, making sure he's still ready for any team that comes calling, hopefully. But out of 32 teams, let's say half of them, so that's 16 teams that could use someone like him, or someone of his caliber, if you will. They haven't come calling. I don't know too many football players that kind of stay in that kind of shape when their seasons are over, but I think that he's still good enough to make an NFL team and play. Hell, start. Because while being in football shape, he hasn't played in a game. He hasn't gotten any wear and tear, and none of that professional football wear and tear, no injuries. And he's not desperate for money by any means. Nike's got his back, at least financially, and I'm just gonna go and say it. I stand behind him, but it's funny or kind of weird for me to say. Like, I believe in the cause. I believe in why he kneels, hands down. And if you want to focus on the quote-unquote flag being disrespected by him kneeling, I think you need to go back and find out where he got kneeling from. I'm not going to elaborate too much on that, but go back and there are still articles out there. Go back and research. Do your homework before you go pointing a finger at somebody because you think he's being disrespectful to the country. You need to find out why the physical act of kneeling came about. His purpose behind kneeling was to non-violently protest what was happening to people of color by police or other authoritative, organizations, social authoritative organizations. It's a shame that he is still, or definitely at least appears to still be blackballed by teams because they don't want the quote unquote headache, but they'll keep players on their teams who maybe have trouble with substance abuse, or have troubles with domestic abuse. There are alleged rapists on teams. There are people possibly with police records on their team still playing, living a dream. Who knows? Maybe some of them have Super Bowl rings by now or whatever. I don't know. I can't name them all right now. It just seems, rather hypocritical in what's going on in the league between teams that don't want the trouble, quote unquote trouble of Colin Kaepernick, but will look the other way with other things. And I suppose that's human nature. People focusing on something that bothers them, going through the motions of responding to that or dealing with that, and then maybe after time they get used to it and they turn their back on it, or they want to focus on one thing and turn their backs towards something else. They only want to focus on or they only want to bring attention and energy, focus to protesting or speaking out against one, perhaps maybe just one thing that bothers them, and again, turning a blind eye and a deaf ear towards other things that can be either just as bad or maybe worse. I don't know. A case in point, or an example, and this is going to sound a bit odd, but you have sports fans out there that are fans. They might be fans of a particular athlete, or maybe in general the team that particular athlete plays on. For example, if that one player, that one professional athlete might have been found to have abused their wife or their girlfriend, or divorced their wives and are kind of a deadbeat dad to their kids, or can't quite seem to leave drugs alone, or maybe perhaps there's public assault or public drunkenness, stuff like that. Socially speaking, it just seems rather weird that you can conduct yourself in a maybe less than respectful manner, so to speak, and not be shunned and discredited, thrown under the bus, blackballed, more than someone who is, again, non-violently protesting injustices, social, racial injustices in this country by taking a knee during the anthem for a country that if you can't see, either harbors or turns a blind eye and deaf ear to racism. Hi, my name is Hassan. Welcome to Earth. You must be from some other planet. Sometimes I just don't get it. I suppose people want to pick and choose what's important to them. They want to pick and choose what they can live with. What they can pick and choose what will or what won't keep them up at night. I guess this might be a weird example. Like back when Michael Jackson was having his legal issues because he allegedly couldn't stop getting a little too close to little boys. He really didn't lose a lot of fans, at least not that what I saw. Like I personally didn't know a single person that stopped being a fan of his music and just stopped saying, you know what, fuck this, I'm not listening to his music ever again. And they still do, even though he's been dead for 10 years or so? I don't know. But people were willing to look the other way, or kind of blow it off and be like, no, oh wow, that's pretty messed up. But kind of like what Dave Chappelle said in that one skit, I think it was season 2 of his show, when he was supposed to be doing jury duty, and they asked him about Michael Jackson's allegations or whatever, and he goes, no, he didn't do that. He made Thriller. That happened in society. I'm not trying to throw Michael Jackson under the bus, because quite frankly, I'm one of those fans. I'm just as human as the next person. Yeah, I remember those two. I'm thinking there were just two different instances in history when Michael Jackson had to go to court or had legal troubles because he was accused of child molestation, and people kind of looked at him. Some folks were like, yeah, he might be that weird, but he keeps cranking out them albums, man, or he's making masterpieces, musically speaking. And it's kind of like they just kind of let that go. I don't know. You can find the same thing in politics on both sides of the aisle. There have been men or women out there with particular personal transgressions that, perhaps some of them will, they end up resigning from their elected offices, but they've still got they'll still end up with plenty of friends. Their family's still sticking by them, and some people still continue political or social careers out there in society. None of these folks have been exiled or made to feel like they've been left out on an island, at least not forever. And people, society, for example, for these politicians, if they stay in politics, somehow they get reelected, or whatever. They still have fans, they still have people that come out and support their causes or support causes that they will endorse or whatever, for example. But back to Colin Kaepernick, yeah, I believe in his cause, and you can stop listening to this episode right now if you want. You're free to do that, just like he's free to kneel. I think he should be playing football. If that's something he wants to do, play football. For the sake of his health, his physical health out there in the field. I mean, he seems to be, trailblazing and very involved with the social issues he stands for. I guess you could say his colleagues, followers, he's for the cause, and he's doing, in my opinion, he's doing well with that. He's bringing a lot of awareness. He has a lot of support for what he believes is unjust and unfair. Things that I agree with. Again, fuck it, fight me. It's it's something. Last thing I want to say, it's something to be said, because I remember when a lot of when all this started, and he really seemed to be, going through the first stages of being blackballed by the league, where I think he was in his last year playing for the Niners. He was still kneeling. There were a few other players that were still kneeling, like Eric Reed, who was a former teammate of his. He was kneeling. I want to say Malcolm Jenkins in Philadelphia was kneeling. And I want to say there were, for the life of me, I do apologize, I can't remember, there were maybe at least 2 other players also kneeling, or at least showing some kind of silent protest during that season. And you had folks who supported the cause, who still likely support the cause, who refused to watch any NFL games, to boycott the games. And some of them are well known, some of them not so well known, just common folks. Some of them are still not watching any NFL games. They won't contribute to the ratings or, the viewership of a league that is blackballing somebody who is silently protesting. And I think what they're doing, I respect that. I have to admit that as a person of color, I have not taken part in that boycott, the refusal to watch NFL games, not as directly as they are. I mean, truth be told, if there's a game on that is interesting to me, I'll try to watch it if I have the time or the opportunity to watch the game. I haven't been watching NFL games or football as often as I used to. I've just had other obligations, other responsibilities, other things that occupy my time. But I still watch the games. I have friends of color, just the same shade as me, maybe lighter, maybe darker, maybe, Hispanic, maybe Asian, whatever, who believe in the cause, or believe that Colin Kaepernick is right for doing what he's been doing, and other folks who think, in kind to him, believe in the cause, they support the cause, they respect the cause, they agree with the cause, and they watch NFL football, maybe more than I do. They're maybe bigger fans than I am of the league. And I think a few have been to games, paid the money for a ticket perhaps, paid for concessions, for NFL, licensed gear, paying into the league, and they've gone. And I'm not trying to point a finger at them saying that they're two-faced by any means. No, I think it's there's such a gray area that we as humans have maybe sometimes trouble navigating through the gray area, or trouble avoiding the gray area, or maybe just not any interest or perhaps awareness to stay out of this, metaphorical gray area. We want to support the cause, but we also want to watch football. We're also fans of football. I suppose growing up being a fan of football, or being a fan of a particular team, you've grown up always being a fan of, it's a hard habit to break, maybe. Having said that, for example, if the same thing was really going on, or really taking shape in, for example, Major League Baseball, like it is in the NFL, I'd be navigating myself mentally or morally through a gray area I'm not sure I would ever find a way out of. I mean, I've grown up always being a baseball fan, and there's a particular baseball team I will always be a fan of. I imagine I will always be a fan of that team, and many players that are either currently on the team or have since retired, or even legendary players. So for me to, for example, if it were something like this were involved in Major League Baseball, I think the point I'm trying to make is it'd be really tough for me to even consider boycotting watching baseball. And my intention is not to be some kind of a sellout. I don't think, my friends and family of color who either they have or they very well could go through, and I really hope they don't, go through the kind of, injustices or perhaps brutality or mistreatment by police or folks in authority, the same kind of things that Kaepernick and others with him oppose, or want to bring, awareness to for change. They could very well go through this kind of stuff on a Saturday night, and then the very next day, Sunday, it's game day, they might be watching football. Or they could get stopped by a cop, get roughed up, or, whatever. Something that we all have seen in the news, whether we want to act like it's not happening or not. I mean, we all know what's happened to some people, okay? You know exactly what I'm talking about. There have been people with skin like mine, if not darker, not a weapon to be found, and they're either, shot and killed, or they go through some extreme treatment by folks with a badge. And it all seems to end up being because, they have skin like this. We could experience that on a Sunday on the way to a game, or from a game, or at a game of a sport that we're still fans of, or that we still might be fans of. I don't think any of these folks are sellouts. I don't think so. I think that we're just navigating through a gray area that seems to be kind of murky. Because ever since Kaepernick has started kneeling the first time, there have been more people, several more, unfortunately, several more victims of police brutality or, legal injustices simply because their skin has melanin. Now that I've talked about it, I think and I go, man, what is up with society? I don't know. I really don't know. But there could be so much more to be said about that. I think I'll get back to it at some point later, but I don't want to ramble on and on and on about it. So, I'll move it along to something else. Kind of staying within the same, universe or same, conceptual discussion for this episode. So yeah, we'll end this segment and move on to something else. Keep watching. Hey, did you know that statistically speaking, 6 out of 7 dwarves aren't happy? You're welcome.
Turn that down! It's too loud!
So, with this segment in this episode, I think that this is probably going to be a staple for my future episodes. And this segment will be about something to do with relationships. I guess love and relationships. I feel like I'm always going to have something to say about that, or about, things that have to do with that. And yeah, what I've gone through in the last, year plus, doesn't necessarily make me an expert. I don't know everything there is to know, but I do know when I'm right. But anyway, it just feels like perhaps maybe not necessarily the right thing to do, but something I'm comfortable in talking about. So again, this is likely going to be this kind of segment where I talk about something that has to do with love, romance, or relationships. This will be a segment that's likely going to be in every episode. So here we go. Now, I feel inspired by something that I saw on Twitter. It was a tweet that I probably should have saved it, bookmarked it, but it was something along the lines of, dating would be a lot easier if we knew ahead of time, just how strongly we feel about the person we're sitting across from, the person we're getting to know. Perhaps it wouldn't take as many dates to get to, I guess, whatever status or whatever level you're trying to get to. I for one, personally speaking, I always dated for the end result of a long-term relationship, a serious relationship. And in the beginning, when I was younger, I laid it on too thick. I came on too strong. Really, I should have taken things slow, or slow and steady, to get to the ultimate objective, or the ultimate goal, and that was being in a long-term relationship. But man, I probably wouldn't have taken so many dates. Thinking about it, it wouldn't have taken so many dates to make that aware to the other party, to my potential, I guess, girlfriends or companions, whatever, in each of those particular situations. I think for me also, personally speaking, I was always naturally shy anyway. So I overthink. I overthink things. So I was thinking a lot about how to in effect convey that that's what I was looking for in someone, going on a date with them. I felt that perhaps it had to be said, and that was likely because of all my overthinking. Because I felt at the time, if I was using an online dating profile, sure, it could say that, I'm looking for long term. It could say, absolutely, yeah, I'm looking for long term, but I felt like I had to reiterate that verbally to whomever I was on a date with. So, yeah, I feel like that saying that I saw on Twitter, yeah, it meant something. And I had to sit back at my age and go, you know what, yeah, man, I could have really saved a lot of time had I, you know, or had it been established, had it been known that, hey, this is what I'm looking for. So, this first date, this is what I'm looking for in someone. So where do we go from here? During the second day, do we sit and talk about our life's aspirations, or do we wait until like maybe until we've been going at this for a month or so? And sometimes it does happen in potential relationships, in these first dates, even second dates. I mean, I like to think that it happens with it occurs during dates where people are maybe a little more up in age. They're older. They've definitely got a considerable amount of life experience, and figure, well, time is running out. They kind of figure, time is running out. I might as well put everything out on the table, lay all my cards out and play the best hand that I can. In my opinion, I don't think that relationships work that way. You can't just show up. You can't just meet your date, or come to her house, come to his or her house, pick them up or whatever, or you meet out at Red Lobster or whatever, stand there while you're waiting for a table and be like, hey, this is what I want. I want to get married and have 2 kids, maybe 3 kids. I definitely want a daughter in that mix. And we're going to go live, out in the suburbs, maybe not far out in the boonies, but, just close enough where we can still, maybe if we got jobs in the city, we can commute, back and forth between home, and, and that'll be that. I'll drive an SUV. You could drive a sedan if you want to, or maybe you can have a minivan, whatever. All that stuff doesn't get laid out that quickly. It definitely doesn't. And if it does, for example, if a guy comes out to you, ladies, or whatever, and one person comes out and just says all that, you might as well just write that night off as a free dinner. Just put your mask on, play the role, get your free food, and then call it a night. But again, conceptually speaking, man, things would be a lot easier. And I guess in this day and age, in this society, everybody wants things quicker. People want that instant gratification, or pseudo-instant. They want that quick gratification. Like, you have to take the time to really get to know the person you're sitting across from. Do you want to give that person attention, effort, affection, for a month, for the next month, for the next 6 months, for the next year, for years and years? Do you guys want to, procreate? Do you want to go half on a house together, or, cars, other assets, basically your lives, your futures together? And man, imagine how many relationships would even be established. Like, I don't know, what the hell, let's say Facebook established. Because a lot of people now in society, if it's not official on Facebook, it's not. Yeah. If it ain't on Facebook, it ain't shit. Somehow that's a thing. To some people, you'd be surprised. But imagine how many quote-unquote relationships wouldn't even get to that official status if we had some kind of foresight, or if everything was just laid out in front of us. I mean, really think about it. Seriously, take the time and think about the relationships you've had over time. And I'm not saying if you knew how your relationships were going to end necessarily. Now, I don't mean like having psychic abilities. I mean, imagine if your potential mate just kind of put it out there, who they are, just almost like, handing over a resume. And yeah, if you do online dating, your profile is kind of meant to be your resume. But I'm talking about like, your vital statistics that go further than, your height and your weight, your eye color, your body composition, your body type, whatever. I'm talking about, okay, these were all the people that I had dated before, and this is how these relationships ended. These are my pet peeves right here, right out the gate. This is what I hate to do. I don't eat this kind of food. I don't like these kind of TV shows. I'm never gonna watch these kind of movies. This is the kind of music I always listen to when I'm having a bad day. This is how I act when I have a bad day. I sleep on this side of the bed, etc. Imagine if you knew all this kind of stuff ahead of time so that you could, and that's the way it would be. You would take that information and you would, in the first hour, in the first half hour, you would determine whether or not this was going to be great. Almost kind of like the concept of speed dating, except you maybe get a little bit more time to really soak in the information, or the prior knowledge perhaps, or the potential knowledge, if you will, and then determine, how much time and energy or money or whatever you want to invest in this potential mate. So yeah, think about all of your prior relationships and how much time they would have gone on, how serious you would have, taken things, how much you would have invested. Imagine how different society would be if that's how dating and relationships or whatever would go. I think it's something to be said. Something very interesting to consider. I think I'm the kind of person that I have to think about what it was like in my mid-20s. During the time I was, in my 20s, because I had gone on several dates, with a few people, and I think I was still young enough that I kind of put some of those things out there on the table anyway. So I guess you could say I was one of those rare folks that did just that. I put it out there so that, or I put some stuff out there that I was so young and immature and inexperienced, I guess you could say at the time, that I just felt that I was doing myself no harm whatsoever. And of course I did, because I might have been lucky enough to go on maybe a third date with a couple of ladies, and I suppose in retrospect now I saved myself, or I did myself a favor, if you want to look at it that way, by kind of in effect scaring off or allowing these potential mates, these ladies, to reconsider even dating me. And flipping it around, being on the receiving end of such a thing, there were a couple of ladies that I wouldn't say threw me into the fire. I wouldn't say throw me into the fire. No, it was they put their cards out on the table. Yeah, they absolutely did. They put their cards out on the table, and I had this kind of this one-liner, this joke where I saw what was in front of me. Yeah, I saw what was in front of me. I saw what was on the table. And in the moment, literally in the moment, I'm thinking to myself, like in the moment, I'm thinking to myself, this woman can never meet my mother, ever, or any of my friends, or the rest of my family. This is going to be one of those one and done dates. And if either of you, because I think there was only two of you. I think there was only two of you. There was only two of you, I think. If either of you are watching this, I'm sorry. That's how I felt. That's how I thought. So, but yeah, I was on the receiving end of it too, where I saw what it was, or I saw what I basically saw what things had the potential to be, and I more or less declined, in a manner of speaking. Some of us, I think some of us out there still, perhaps just naturally, and maybe it comes by way of some kind of nature, I shouldn't say we, because I don't really do that anymore. I don't think I do that anymore. People out there will go about dating in that fashion. And again, I think perhaps maybe age is a factor. I can't say old age, but just more mature ages, I guess. Folks in there, I'm going to just throw a number out there. Their 40s, 50s, even 60s are out there, and they kind of just, if they're, not so easygoing, they just kind of put it out there. They put it on the table. And they might not feel, or they might feel that they don't have a lot of time left. Hopefully not, not because of disease or some kind of terminal illness, but they feel perhaps as if their time is running out, essentially, to have love, perhaps again in life. I also think that it happens with folks who, for example, if two people are maybe reconnecting after being apart for a long time, two exes perhaps getting back together after, being apart for a long time, people reconnecting or even reconciling after a while, they might in effect feel like they're, or in those moments of maybe going back out or getting back together or whatever, finding out that they are having to get to know each other again. And depending on the amount of time apart and other such factors, like each party might find themselves in reconnecting, that they are essentially getting to know someone new almost. I mean, sure, it's the same person, more or less they look the same name, same social security number, all that stuff. But again, because of maybe various factors, living conditions, maybe there's, something in the physical sense, like perhaps someone's lost weight, they look different, or maybe they've gained weight, they change their hairstyle, whatever. They do something different for a living. They've gone through, maybe they've changed religions, whatever. Anything you can think of where they've changed, their personality has changed. And they feel, one party might feel like, wow, I'm getting to know somebody new. Maybe I should put everything out on the table, or maybe I should tell them, this is what I want out of a relationship. These are my red flags. These are the things I won't stand for. These are the things I don't really care for. Again, I find that might happen between two folks who are reconnecting. Having said that, I think if you're reconnecting after maybe a short amount of time being apart, like, two people break up or they separate or something like that, and they realize, you know what, it sucks not being with you. You know, can we, you know, find a reason or reasons to make it work, you know, to get back together and, you know, let bygones be bygones, you know, and all that other stuff. At that point, they probably put it out there like, yo, okay, I'm not standing for this. I'm not standing for that. You know, I don't want to do this. I hate it when you do that. You know, what are we going to do about this? And that can happen, yeah. I think in cases like that, when two people, if that's the way they're going to reconnect, for example, then, you know, you give it a probationary period, if you will, 30 or 60 days. And after, you know, if it takes that long, and after that amount of time, they're like, okay, you know what, you know, dudes are like, you know what, I hate this bitch. Or ladies are like, I hate that motherfucker. Okay, no wonder we broke up the first time. And, you know, they go their separate ways, unfortunately. So, yeah, imagine if we knew already, or if we had some kind of prior knowledge of what we're sitting across from. You know, who we just bought a drink for, who we're paying for dinner for, or who we're sitting next to at this movie theater, or who we're having coffee with. Yeah, just imagine if we knew a little bit more than just what our, you know, our friends or our family told us about this person that they set us up on a date with, or, you know, or what if we knew more than what this Match.com profile says. Yeah. Having said that too, I feel like, for example, if you're an avid user of online dating, or if you've used it before, it's almost like the profile, one's dating profile doesn't explain it all. The dating profiles actually kind of do it for us. They kind of take care of that concept for us already, because, well, having said that, because I've had experience in using such a thing, it's kind of a two-way street, actually. Like, the user who makes the profile has to have photos. Some do, some don't. And they also have to do a decent job in describing themselves, or describing, you know, what they want out of a potential mate. And if that's not good enough, then I suppose, or if it's inconsistent, if it's incomplete, perhaps that opens up the door to, if you are able to physically meet, if you feel comfortable enough in doing such a thing, that, you know, okay, you guys get together, you meet for the first time, or, you know, maybe after the first date, you get to the second date or the third date, and you're like, all right, this is who I am. Or, you know, I feel like I'm still, you know, in the dark. Like, you know, what the hell? Who the fuck are you? You know, what are we doing here? Are we just going out? You know, what do you want out of this? And then, yeah, then maybe you could, you know, maybe show, you know, a card or two, you know, play a card or two, or maybe, you know, show a little glimpse of your hand that you plan on playing here in this game we call love, and take it from there. But again, for the last time, imagine what our relationships would be like, or would have been like, had you know, those first stages, those first dates, you know, what it would have been like if we really knew whether or not, you know, the person across from us was interested in us, or just how interested they were. It is like a game. It's like playing Uno, or you know, playing spades or something like that, and you don't know what the other person is holding. But if you knew what they were holding, or hell, even if you had half an idea of what they were holding and what they, planned on playing, how they planned on playing it, what it would be like. I'm pretty sure, I feel like I just gotta say it, I'm pretty sure there would be, less of us walking around on this earth. Hell, probably myself included. I mean, I know I wasn't planned, but that's a whole other story. But anyway, just imagine. Keep watching. We're moving on. All right, this is the time when I talk about a few things very briefly. I feel like this is always going to be also a part of the episode, so here we go. Well, it's that time of year. It's a lot colder outside, and snow has fallen in the western New York area. What else is new? I just hope that it's not too harsh. Yeah, knocking on wood if I can find some wood. I don't know. I also hope that... Oh, what the hell? It's gonna happen. I mean, the roads are gonna get fucked up. There's gonna be potholes everywhere. People are gonna get, it's probably happened already. I don't know. I haven't really been watching the news, but people are gonna act like they don't know how to drive through this kind of weather. But you get a free pass if you've just recently moved here and you don't have much experience in this. Okay, cool, fine. I get it. You might not know how to drive, or your car might not even be built for such a thing, so you get a free pass. But those of us who have grown up around here, born and raised in this area, that first snowfall, or the first few snowfalls of the season, and you guys are out here driving like you don't know how to get through this kind of shit. Come on, man. Either deal with it or get out of the way. Come on. But yeah, it's that time of the year. Everybody's bundling up. It's cuffing season, and I don't do that kind of thing. I don't know, at least not yet. I'm still young. I don't know. But yeah, winter is upon us, even though it is not officially winter in the calendar. So yeah, let's hope we get through it all right. Be careful out there. If you're out there walking, be careful. If you're out there driving, be careful, because those of us out there walking don't walk on sidewalks. Even the sidewalks that are shoveled, they don't walk on the sidewalks. They're walking in the street. So be careful, be mindful, especially obviously out in the dark. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Another thing that I want to talk about briefly. This episode is coming out in practically the middle of November, and I had said it before, at least out on social media and amongst some close friends, especially these friends who can relate. November lately has been real shitty for people. People that I know, myself included, especially last November. Man, it was the worst. It was definitely the worst. And I guess I could say so far this November hasn't been that bad at all. Definitely not as bad for me. Definitely not as bad as last November. A lot of people were going through breakups, or big transitions, things ending here and there. Man, just terrible. I don't know. November wasn't supposed to be that way. I don't think that kind of sounds weird to say. I don't really recall November being an unlucky time of the year, an unlucky month. I mean, I grew up, I lived my life knowing that November was, Thanksgiving is in November. And And the weather was taking a turn for not necessarily the worst, but it was getting colder out there. Seasons were changing. Everything was looking fall-like, and fall, autumn is beautiful. But yeah, I mean, for me growing up, especially as a kid, November was great because it was Thanksgiving, and I always gathered with my family. I always saw, as I got older, I saw friends and attended one or two Friendsgivings, as they call them. But man, the things that happened to me and a number of you out there in November, holy shit, it definitely changed the way I thought about the month of November. Just, oh my gosh. Again, I hope yours is going, if you can relate, I hope yours this year is going better than your past Novembers. My gosh. I'm not really embellishing on, what happened to me. I'm not going to name names with anyone else and what they went through. I just hope yours this year is better. I hope you don't end your year on a sour note, Make one last point, which is more like a shout out, actually, to some local podcasters. In fact, those of you affiliated with the Western New York group of podcasters, on Facebook at least, I am, I guess you could say, amateur member myself, but I wanted to give a shout out to a few folks and their podcasts. One good friend of mine, I mean, the dude's practically a brother to me. He's one of the, since I'm older, he's one of the little brothers I never had. In fact, I don't have any little brothers that I know of. Yeah, I don't think so. But my man Bryce Benjamin, he has his own self-named podcast, the Bryce Benjamin Podcast. I was a humbled guest of earlier this year, or a guest on earlier this year. Real thankful for that opportunity. And he also has the Sports with Enthusiasm podcast out there. He's doing really great things, talking about a lot of wonderful and just interesting conversations he's having. So yeah, check him out. Check him out on Facebook. I don't believe, I don't know if you're on Twitter, Bryce. I can't remember. I know you are on Twitter, but I don't know if your podcasts have Twitter handles or whatsoever. But he's out there. The content's out there. It's damn good content. I also want to give a shout out to Matt Johnson. I know he's got a number of podcasts, and I do apologize for the other ones, but I've been one to check out the 2 Point Conversation. I love what he's got going on there, and I know Matt Johnson also has a podcast. He has content out there focused around pro wrestling. Now, I haven't been a fan of pro wrestling in quite a while. On a side note, to give you some perspective on it, I think the last time I really was into pro wrestling, The Rock still had hair, and D-Generation X was still a thing. I mean, you could still tell somebody to suck at any time now, but I mean, we were really telling people to suck it. That was the last time I was kind of really into it. I'm not saying it's not worth the attention or anything like that. My interest just went elsewhere. But anyway, Matt Johnson, shout out to him as well. There's another gentleman by the name of John Simino. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. In his podcast, or the content he's putting out there, he is actually, I believe, a founding member of the Facebook group. Founding member of the Facebook group of Western New York Podcasts. Union of Western New York Podcasts. I'm sorry. I can't believe I couldn't think of that. I should know better. But shout out to you guys and all you other members of the group. You guys are out there putting out, I mean, whether you've only got one episode or one podcast out there, that's still content. You guys are getting it out there. If you're amateurs, like I still consider myself, you're learning things. You're still learning. You're learning on the fly. You're learning episode to episode or podcast entry to podcast entry. You're getting the content out there, and we're slowly getting followers. I wanted to give a shout out to you three guys because I'm not ripping you guys off. I really hope I'm not. I'm one of those folks that believe imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, as they say, but I'm not necessarily trying to imitate any of what you guys do. I just want to be on the level of you guys and many of you other members also in the group out there. I think what we're all doing is pretty awesome. I mean, not everybody is doing this. It doesn't mean that we're better than them, but what we're doing is pretty awesome. We're saying what's on our mind. We're sharing our thoughts, our opinions, and everything else that's out there. We're doing pretty good things. I will say this though. I hope, if I'm still doing this next year, I hope to have a table or at least participate in next year's podcasting convention. It was on the news earlier this year. I know my man Bryce was there. He had a table for his Sporting Enthusiasm podcast. Matt Johnson was there. I want to say he was one of the organizers of the thing, and I believe it was the first year that this was a thing. So if I'm doing this next year, by this time next year, I hope I would have been a participant. So shout out to you guys and shout out to all the members. And anybody who wants to join, the Union of Western New York Podcasters is out there. It's a group on Facebook. Check it out. Again, shout out, guys. And now, here we are at the end. I know, it's so sad. I couldn't do another 2-hour podcast? Yeah, I could have, but, I mean, who really wants to listen to me just talk and talk and talk for 2 hours? I mean, there's only a small amount of people on this earth that are willing to sit in the same room as me and listen to this voice for even an hour straight. Anyway, it is the end of this episode. I thank you for making it this far. I hope that what I said through this episode was entertaining. I hope you got something useful out of it, something positive out of it. And I hope that you maybe take a moment or two to respond. Any thoughts, opinions, responses, ideas, constructive criticisms, send them my way. Comment below, or find me on social media and reach out. My next episode, I can't guarantee when that's coming out. I want it to be soon. I always have something to say anyway. So I hope my next episode comes out soon. And at this moment in time, I'm not sure what I want to talk about then for that one. But have no fear. It will be something. It will be a lot of something probably. I want to maybe keep it an hour or so every time out. 2 hours is pretty excessive. I mean, I think maybe only for special occasions should it be 2 hours. So we'll see. Thanks for watching or listening, however you got the information. And I hope that you'll take a look at me again soon, or you'll listen to me again sometime soon. Until then, be safe. Laugh some, love a lot. Take care.